Hello, this is a joint production between WKTV Voices and the Grand Valley State Veterans History Project. My name is Cody Leroy Rollins with the Grand Valley State Veterans History Project, and I'm here with Stacie McCarthy of Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right, let's go ahead and start. When and where were you born?
I was born March 10th, 1985, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, in Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay, so what was life like? How did you wind up joining the military?
Well, it's interesting. I had about 6 years of a fairly normal childhood in a suburban neighborhood, and then my mother and father split up. Basically, mother took us kids, and unfortunately, we lived in a pretty bad situation. My dad got custody and married my current mom, who used to be in the Navy. So I was raised in Michigan from 12 to 20, and around 18 my mom started mentioning that the Navy might be good for me, and then I did a little research and said, hell yeah, I want to do this.
All right. Before we get into your Navy career, with a lot of the younger veterans, we like to ask, do you remember 9/11? Do you remember what it was like seeing that moment?
Yes, I was in high school, actually my junior year, and it was between classes. I'm walking from one class to another, and I notice the TVs are on, and there's two buildings, and one of them's on fire. And so no classes happened the rest of the day. We just sat there in each class and just watched everything unfold, and it was a shock at first. I didn't know how to feel, and then the more we watched it, the more everything, like the reality of it, came, and it was pretty terrifying and devastating.
Did that have any influence in your wanting to join the military?
In a way, yeah. I kind of wanted to help keep people safe, but I also wanted to get the hell out of Michigan.
That's fair. So you moved from Massachusetts to Michigan with your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what year did you enlist?
I enlisted in 2005, 2 years after high school.
Okay. And what was boot camp like?
It was interesting. It was very active. It was very stressful. I already had post-traumatic stress disorder without realizing it, so the yelling was not very well received by me, but I did my best to kind of, bite down and keep going. So that was actually more stressful than anything else. I didn't mind the physical aspect at all, because I was already running a lot beforehand. The push-ups obviously were difficult, and I ate so much food and lost weight. I kept having to tighten up my shorts because we were moving all the time. Got shin splints from running in boots, the little shin-high boots. We didn't even have the big combat boots yet.
Yeah. So, after boot camp, where'd you go?
I went to the Presidio of Monterey, the Defense Language Institute, to learn Korean.
Okay. And when you signed up, did they tell you were going to be a linguist, or did they kind of spring
I told them I wanted to be a linguist. So I took the DLAB, the Defense Language Aptitude Battery Test, and scored really high on it. I got a 140 out of 140 on that particular test. And so they didn't have any spots, but I was delayed entry, so we had me signed up as a sonar tech, just in case. And then within a month, I was signing a new contract to be a linguist.
Okay, and you were a Korean linguist.
Yes.
How long did that school take it?
That one the schooling itself was 1.5 years, but I was there for 2 years because I had to wait for the class to start.
Okay, so that was quite a long time.
Yeah, I was in A school for way longer than a lot of people.
How was that, though?
It was kind of awesome. It was stressful because, there's a lot of aspects of military that aren't so great, but I loved learning the language. I loved making friends. I loved being able to explore Monterey, and it was very interesting. I'd wake up. I used to when I lived in the barracks at DLI. I'd come out, and the SEALs would be arfing away down at the bay. You could hear them all the way up the hill.
So what didn't you like, if you don't mind me asking?
There were certain chiefs and petty officers who were they were a little overzealous in some of their approaches. They weren't very human, if you know what I mean.
Kind of like, do this, do that, be on time all the time, I don't care, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. They weren't as open. They were more intimidating. When I actually, after a stint in Hawaii as a Korean linguist, I went back there as a second-class petty officer for Tagalog. And that one was a little more fun because I lived off post, I had a car, but we had a really crappy chief, and I was a junior or an assistant leading petty officer, so that was kind of a nightmare, but the class part was great.
Okay, so we jumped a little bit ahead. So
Yes, we did. Sorry about that.
Let's swing back. After your first stint in DLI, that was
Yes.
2 years, you learned Korean. Are you fluent in Korean, or?
I wish. I was proficient to a point. I have lost a lot of that skill, but I can retain it. I can regain it. It's not completely lost. I still have study materials at home if I wanted to pick it back up. I know the basics, so I can jump right back in.
Did they teach you just like how to actually speak Korean, or is it just interpreting certain things?
Well, they taught us how to actually speak Korean, from introductions to and ordering food, all the way to discussing news items and complex thoughts.
Okay.
They wanted us the highest level. They were aiming for was a 3, which is discussing opinions and etc.
Okay. So after that, you went to Hawaii.
Yes.
That was your first duty station.
That was my first duty station.
What was that like?
That was awesome. Before I got a car, it was kind of horrendous because I always had to ask people for rides to work because we didn't have a busing system or anything like that. And I was fiercely independent, so it was really hard for me to ask for things. So I finally got my license and moved off post because I was a 3rd class and they didn't want us in the barracks because they were kind of overflowing.
Yeah.
But the training was cool. Getting that security clearance was really easy, and I got in. Well, easy for me because no issues. But we started to learn our job, and it was discouraging at first because my job didn't 100% involve language, so I was really frustrated. But after a while, I got into the groove of things. I bonded with my coworkers. I enjoyed Hawaii and started training parkour toward the end of my enlistment, my first enlistment.
Yeah. So what was your job? Can you talk about that, or?
I was an analyst.
Okay. So you were just listening to things and interpreting them?
It was more of analyzing traffic.
Okay. Okay. So just like a flow of information.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you working out of Pearl Harbor, or?
At first I was working out of, what did we call it? It wasn't NC Tams, it was the tunnel.
Yeah, the little offshoot.
Yeah, it was the original NSA building there. And we were joint. We worked with everybody. We worked with civilians. We worked with Navy, Army, Air Force, Coast Guard.
Okay. And you just did how many years were you there?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay. And then you re-enlisted after that?
I did, because I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do after that first enlistment. Realized I needed more time, and I wanted to go back to California and actually return to Hawaii. So they said, okay, well, you have a choice between Indonesian and Tagalog. And I'm like, oh, they both sound great. They said, well, we got a Tagalog class starting now, or around this time. I said, that's perfect. And the chief was funny. He goes, you're going to come back to Hawaii, right? As if I didn't want to come back.
Yeah, because why would you want to come back to Hawaii?
Well, there were a lot of people who hated it there, but I never understood it. I never had an issue with the people in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So, and I absolutely loved going to the beach at any time of the year when I had time.
Yeah. That's the best part about Hawaii.
Yeah.
So you learned Tagalog. That's the language of which country?
The Philippines. It's the main official dialect.
Okay. Was that harder or easier than Korean?
It was harder for me to speak because there's a lot of conjugations, but it was easier to learn, and it was easier to understand because it was a bit simpler. It had some roots in Spanish because of the Spanish occupation of the Philippines, so that was helpful too.
Okay. And after, how long was that?
That was just a year.
Okay, so not as intensive as
No.
Korean.
I mean, they were both, it was 6 to 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, plus homework and speaking. We had a lot more fun, though, because I was less scared.
I mean, it's basically you're cramming 4 years of language study into a 1 or 2 year span, right?
Exactly. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yep. So
Learning how to talk.
So you have immersion training after each of those stints at school, right?
We have immersion training during those stints.
Okay.
We had like mini immersions where we would take everyone to Fort Ord and we'd spend the night and we'd have like this whole couple days of just straight up nothing but that language. And the Tagalog immersion wasn't quite as extensive as the Korean immersion, but so that was just a full day. But it was funny because our department head was a Korean woman, and she was also a Korean teacher at one point, and she knew that I was also a linguist in Korean. And so when I was working with her on this one thing, she had me translate between Filipino or Tagalog and Korean, which was a lot of fun. It was hard, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because you're going from Korean to English to Tagalog to English to Korean.
Exactly,
right?
and that's not how you're supposed to think about it, but that's still how you think about it, because I was in my mid-20s. I understand when you're children, like, it's a lot easier to just absorb them as if it's just another way of speaking. It's harder to do that when you're an adult.
Did you notice a lot of your classmates struggling with language?
I mean, we all struggled.
Yeah.
Most of us in my Tagalog class, most of us excelled. We were very very apt. In Korean, it was a little more difficult. I had a speaking partner in class at one point who just stared at me when I said something in Korean, and then it would just make me like exhausted and frustrated because I wasn't getting anything out of working with him. Like, dude, come on, help me out here.
That's funny.
Say something simple.
So they sent you to Korea after your Korean class, right?
No.
Or was that during?
There was an opportunity, but I didn't take it because I was an idiot at the time. I was a young woman in love with an idiot. So I'm like, no, I don't want to go because I don't want to be away from him that much, that long. It was stupid. But when I was stationed in Hawaii, I got to go to Seoul for a refresher course where I studied at Kyung Hee University, and it was so cool.
How far into your first tour was that?
That was toward the end of my first tour. That was my last language training before I took the last DLPT, Defense Language Proficiency Test. And because I went to Korea, I did really well. Okay.
What was that like going to Korea?
It was cool. I mean, I could read everything, even if I didn't understand everything, so I was able to ask, hey, what does this mean? There was Dunkin' Donuts everywhere.
That's really weird.
I know, but they had really cool stuff that you don't really have here, like lentil-filled croquettes and all that. It was actually kind of awesome.
I'm sorry, that sounds terrible.
Oh, sounds, I'm a weirdo I'm a big foodie, so almost anything sounds good to me. But I would take the subway or the bus or walk. There was a lot of that. During off time, a lot of the time I just went off on my own and explored. Sometimes went with friends to see some movies, the friends that I came with. And we did, I went to the spa a lot because it's really cheap. You could just go in there and you hang out in the hot tubs, maybe get a body scrub or a massage, and it was perfect because it was winter. It was cold as heck. So I went there a lot.
That's pretty cool.
And then the school itself was intense because you only spoke Korean. I was in a class by myself with all these people from other countries who did not speak English.
Okay.
One of us knew English, so she was actually pretty awesome. Well, she was awesome anyway, but it sucked because I made friends with these classmates, but I couldn't maintain a relationship with them without having to declare it, and it was really difficult. So I basically cut ties because someone freaked me out about it. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna lose your clearance." And I'm like, it's just easy for me to make friends.
Yeah. So, how long were you in Seoul?
6 weeks.
Okay, so month and a half. That sounds.
Yep, I stayed in a dormitory with a heated floor.
Oh, a heated floor.
That was the heat, and it actually kept the room really warm.
I'll bet.
And you had slippers for this. The bathroom was this. There was a glass wall or whatnot, like a shower wall, and you had your toilet and sink and everything, and then the shower head was right there. So, and they expected us to clean, keep the place clean. So when I cleaned it, I just sprayed the whole bathroom down.
So, the other people in your class, did they know you were military?
No, they weren't supposed to know. The only people who knew were the people I came with, and we had a separate class in the afternoon that was just military topics.
Okay. Was that taught by?
That was taught by a Korean teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a civilian,
Okay.
but he knew. Like, the teachers were all in the know. But yeah, we were supposed to kind of keep it quiet for
obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You didn't want people to know you were U.S. military because then they'd be like trying to follow you and get information or something. It's the paranoia.
Exactly. That was the thing. You never knew who was going to be that person. And I had classmates from Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. She was what they called a kyopo. She was ethnically Korean, but she lived overseas.
Okay.
And she worked at the Seoul embassy. She was awesome. I loved Elena. I miss her. We had people from Japan and China, and everyone was just really sweet.
Okay.
So it was really hard to be suspicious.
Yeah. So, just so I got the timeline right.
Yeah.
You went to Hawaii for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Korea for a month and a half.
Korea was during the 3-year stint.
Okay. And then from there, you went back to Hawaii for a little bit. Then you went back to Monterey to do Tagalog.
Yes.
What happened after the Tagalog?
I went back to Hawaii for 3.5 years, and for a month out of that, I was loaned out to a ship.
So what did you do in Hawaii the second time?
Pretty much the same thing, except for in the beginning, I was placed in the defense travel system portion of our command. I was the one in charge of getting sailors their government credit card accounts and making sure that their travel vouchers were good to go and all that fun stuff.
And this was when you were back with NIOC, Naval Information Operations
Yes,
Command.
they put me in direct support.
Okay. And what is direct support?
These are sailors who are they work intelligence, but they can be loaned out basically to the shore side, like the national side in Hawaii, or out to ships.
Okay. And for most of your time there, you did the DTS, and then you went to work.
I got hurt.
How'd you get hurt?
I got hit by a wave.
How very naval of you.
I was on the beach and I was goofing off in the water, and I got lifted up by a very big wave up at North Shore, and it dislocated my knee. So I had to have a full patella reconstruction. They put me in the transient personnel unit on Pearl Harbor because I wasn't deployable. And when I was back from limited duty, even though I always had pain after that, they put me back in direct support, but I didn't get to go back to DTS, which was something I knew like the back of my hand at that point. And so that was really frustrating because half the time we were either doing some dumb training or just sitting there bored out of our skulls because we didn't have a job to do, and I needed to be utilized. Yeah. They sent me to the, what did we call it? They sent me to the watch a few times where you and I hung out quite a bit, worked together, and I loved being there because I had something to do.
Yeah, and this was on NCTAMS, right?
Yes.
Which is Naval
Oh.
It's a big acronym.
It is a big acronym, and that was where the new NSA building was.
Naval something telecommunication.
Yeah.
And we should have looked this up before.
We
this.
really should have, but it's okay. They'll
Yeah.
understand it was intelligence things.
It's the second naval base
Yeah.
on Hawaii.
It is.
And you worked on the watch floor pretty much on and off for how long?
Oh my goodness. A couple years.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Yeah, and during my last year, they deployed me to the Shiloh.
Okay. And what is the Shiloh?
It's a cruiser.
Okay. And what did you do on the Shiloh?
I read a lot.
Okay. And you were off of South Korea, right? But you never...
I met them in Singapore, and we just kind of cruised around the Pacific.
Okay.
And we docked in Singapore. I know that's not right. We docked in Korea, and we docked in Japan, which was kind of awesome.
Okay, so you got to experience Korea one last time, right?
Right, yeah. Yep. I would love to go back for vacation if and when I have enough money.
So your second tour in Hawaii was a lot less eventful than your first one, other than getting injured and sent
Yeah.
to a boat for a little bit.
Although I did enjoy it a little more, except and you remember direct support, we had a couple leaders that weren't really good at what they did and kind of made our lives miserable. Once I became a first-class petty officer, it was evident.
Yeah, we had some truly terrible leaders. If you're watching, you know who you are.
But we had really good leaders too.
That's true.
There was a new Master Chief. I met him when he was a senior chief, and I was first coming to Hawaii as a Korean linguist. And he messaged me on Facebook and said, "What can I do to keep you in?" When I was getting out, I'm like, "It's already too late, but thank you."
So when did you rank up? Actually, when did you get third class?
Third class. Oh, I got third class upon graduating Korean.
Okay.
That was the deal.
Okay, so it's an automatic thing.
Yeah, it was an automatic thing. Now, the second class, I had to take a test, and first class, I had to take a test, and I ranked up to second class pretty quickly, too. I think I was a second class almost as soon as I got on the watch floor.
Okay, so that was during your first...
First, yeah.
And sorry, go.
They ranked us up really fast. We had, especially Korean linguists, we had like 100%.
Rank up?
Yes. Promotion.
Okay. And when
For
did
a
you
little
make
bit.
when did you make first? Was that during your first tour?
No, it was during my second tour when I was coming back from the transient personnel unit. I was injured and becoming a first class.
That's kind of funny. Why did they rank you up then?
Because I did well on the test and it was my turn.
All right then.
Because it's not, yeah, I my injury wasn't 100% my fault. But yeah, of course, some of our duties, like being on the ship and having to run information and other things, did aggravate the condition.
So what made you get out?
I was ready. I needed to move on. I wanted to go to music school and be a musician, and
Okay.
so I'm working on that. I was tired. I needed to do something else, and I was already planning on getting out. I just didn't get out as early as I initially planned.
Okay. And what's life been like on the outside?
It's been pretty awesome. I mean, there's a lot less undue stress. I mean, I still get stressed out because school is a lot of work, and life can be pretty difficult. It's expensive. I do miss that paycheck and
Yeah.
those allowances, and I do miss some friends from certain duty stations, and I miss having a guaranteed job.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm actually really happy with where I've been lately.
All right. Have you maintained Tagalog at all? I know you said you didn't do much with Korean, but...
Little bit. Actually, my Tagalog's not as good as my Korean.
Okay.
It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, although I can figure out what's going on.
Okay. A few more questions and we'll get out of here. Has your military experience really affected you now that you're out? Like, have you noticed anything like that?
Well, I feel like I have a higher work ethic in some cases. In others, I stress certain things a lot less because it's not as big of a deal. When I first got out, I think the biggest part is addressing people who are higher ranking than you in the civilian world as far as jobs and school classes. It's a lot different. It's a lot more relaxed. I don't have to be as formal. People used to laugh at me because I was so formal.
Yeah.
Hasn't been that hard of an adjustment.
Okay. Knowing everything that you know now, would you do it again?
Yeah. Actually, knowing everything that I know now, I would have gotten some psychiatric help for my PTSD and depression.
Okay. And in the future, if you have a kid and they come to you and they say they want to join the military, what would you say?
Depending on the kid, which isn't happening, by the way. But if I were to be caring for a kid or anyone who came up to me, I would look at who they are, what their disposition is, and advise based on that, because it's not for everybody. I mean, I did well. I was frustrated a lot, but I did well. And someone like me, I would say, hell yeah, go for it.
All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything cool that happened that I missed?
I don't know. Nah, it's not that cool. Nothing that cool happened after that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.